Act 2, time, the present, place, a living room in New York City, an apartment. A man in his late 50s and a woman around 40 years of age are watching the movie The Jazz Singer on television. Off stage can be heard Al Jolson singing My Mammy. Finally the song ends. The man shuts off the television.
What a great movie, Paula. A real classic. Get it? A real classic?
Very cute, Frank. Yes, the movie does have its moments, but it seems so outdated.
Outdated? Okay, some of the plot is corny and the acting stagey, but the basic theme is timeless. Couldn't you just feel the tension when Jack had to choose between his job and his faith?
That scene was so contrived that it almost made me laugh.
There was nothing laughable about that scene.
I must beg to differ with you.
What was the problem?
Wasn't it obvious?
Get to the point.
Al Jolson being in blackface. It was as if the movie was mocking blacks, and I don't think that's right.
What was wrong with that? He was playing a minstrel. And at that time, that was a very popular form of entertainment. And I don't think many blacks objected to it.
I don't know about that. All I know is that I think it's kind of weird that Hollywood would make movies featuring white actors performing in blackface. It showed an insensitivity that I think was indefensible.
Oh boy, here we go again. White people being the bad guys again.
I didn't say that. What I am saying is that what we saw in The Jazz Singer was the perpetuation of racial stereotyping at the expense of an entire group of people, and that's simply not fair.
I thought it was a great movie. It's a classic. People love it, but you think it's unfair.
The movie is a classic, and Jolson was a great entertainer, but still, the movie represents a parody of black people, and to me, that's wrong.
It's only a movie. It's not meant to be taken seriously.
But there I must beg to differ with you. Movies are taken seriously, even cartoons, and they send messages that shape the attitudes of millions of people.
First, The Jazz Singer is not a parody of black people. It's about a Jewish entertainer who has to deal with issues relevant to his experience as a Jew. And second, when Jolson is in blackface, his performance is dignified, respectable, and above all, great entertainment. His rendition of My Mammy is considered one of the great songs of all time. So I think you're way off base regarding your criticisms.
No, I think I'm quite on base. Though it's true that the movie does not outright mock black people, that the main characters in blackface to me could be seen as an affront to blacks. How would you like it if a black actor did a takeoff on, let's say, an Italian? Wouldn't you find that offensive?
Before I can answer that, I'd have to see the movie.
That answer is a cop-out. With that Italian flag tattooed on your arm, I bet you wouldn't like it one bit.
Don't tell me what I would like and wouldn't like.
Looks like I struck the wrong nerve.
You're imagining things.
No, I'm not. But since we're on the subject, don't you think that the country would be better off if there were less racial and ethnic stereotyping? I mean, do we really need all that crap?
It's just innocent entertainment, that's all. Look at all the TV sitcoms. It's featuring black actors. They sure don't seem to mind it.
That's because they want to work. And these are the roles that are offered to them. And don't forget that these TV shows are financed and sponsored by big corporations who want to sell their products.
What you're saying is simply untrue. Those shows are responding to what the audience wants. And if the audience wants to watch black sitcoms, then this is what the networks will produce.
I have no problem with black actors being in sitcoms. They absolutely have a right to earn a living. But let's not fool ourselves. Attitudes have not changed. We're still divided along racial lines, no matter how much the situation seems to have improved.
Hey, whenever blacks object to a program, it gets pulled. Look what happened with Amos and Andy. That was really a great show. Very funny, totally unoffensive, yet the networks bowed to pressure and boom, no more Amos and Andy. What a shame. It was a really great show. I remember watching that show when I was a kid. Everybody loved it. Nobody ever complained.
That's because when you were a kid, everyone you knew, everyone you went to school with, your neighborhood, everything was white. And for them, Amos and Andy was harmless fun, but at someone else's expense.
Come on now. It was a comedy. It was supposed to make people laugh, and it did. You didn't hear Indians complaining about Tonto, did you?
As a matter of fact, some did. And if they didn't, I'm sure they didn't like it anyway.
What was there not to like?
The blatantly racist stereotyping, making Tonto sound like a child, which in turn created the impression that every Native American is childlike.
I think you're being a bit too harsh. Tonto was a loyal and trusted friend who helped the Lone Ranger bring criminals to justice.
That's right, he was. But when one thinks of Tonto, one first thinks of a man who's friendly but cannot be taken seriously.
But that show was on years ago. Things have changed.
No, they haven't. Schools are still segregated. Whole cities are now almost entirely non-white. And the O.J. trial, the O.J. Simpson, he showed the whole world that we have a long way to go to bridging that racial gap that divides us.
O.J. Simpson was guilty. He got off because the jury was almost all black. If he had been tried where the crime had occurred, it would have been a completely different story. But the DA there bowed to political pressure and had the case moved to a place where O.J. could beat the rap. And he did. What a disgrace. The jury had already decided that O.J. would walk.
Do you know what you're saying? Do you actually hear yourself talking? This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're saying that a black jury acquitted because O.J. was black, while a white jury would have convicted him because he was black.
No way! That black jury was prejudiced, period. And they talk about white people being biased.
I watched that case on TV. And Frank, you're not going to like what I'm going to say, but I would have found him not guilty too.
Are you for real? The trial was a travesty of justice.
Not really. Evidence wasn't properly handled. One of the detectives was caught in a lie. The glove didn't fit. Do you think that might have given the jury sufficient grounds for reasonable doubt?
Those were minor errors which in no way negated the ton of evidence pointing directly to Simpson. They chose to ignore it. Like none of it mattered.
What about reasonable doubt, Frank? Reasonable doubt!
Well, they got their way. But at least Simpson is behind bars now.
I read somewhere that something like 2/3 of prisoners in jail are African American.
Well, they commit the crimes, so they do the time. If they didn't break the law, they wouldn't be in trouble.
And you really think things have changed?
For some, yes. Come on. Didn't the election of our current president prove that?
Yes, his election was a huge landmark in American history. But still, the problem of race persists. It's like an irritant that never goes away. Sometimes it recedes into the background, but then it comes roaring back to torment us.
Your pessimism is beginning to disturb me.
Don't you mean my realism? I mean, do you really think white people accept blacks as equal? We live in the United States, but are we really united?
There were plenty of blacks in the military when I served. You have black politicians in position of political leadership. You have black movie stars winning the biggest awards. And must I mention to you, black athletes. So what is the problem?
I'm not denying that there's been progress over the years, but it just seems that whenever we're just about ready to close that racial divide, something happens to drive us apart.
Well, if anyone is driving us apart, it's them, not us. I believe in live and let live. But whenever something bad happens to them, they immediately start crying, racism, racism. Like when a black person is arrested by the police and the guy gets roughed up a little, and they think it's because of his race. Well, maybe it's just because the guy was refusing to cooperate.
Yes, but Frank, how come such cases again and again involve black men and not white? Don't you think that's more than just a coincidence?
No. It's not just more than a coincidence, because they're doing something to attract the attention of the police, and not because they're being targeted.
So, what you're saying is that blacks commit crimes and whites don't.
Don't be cute with me. I didn't say that. Of course white people commit crimes, but you don't hear them screaming racism, do you?
Now, you don't be cute with me. Please, show me a case where a white person was incarcerated because he's white. Racism is insidious. It takes different forms. Sometimes it's hard to detect, but it's there.
You sound like a parrot. You're just so paranoid. And you're not even black. I mean, are you black?
No, I'm not black. And what does that have to do with anything anyway?
You sounded more like one of those white liberals who are on some kind of guilt trip over the alleged mistreatment of blacks and racial minorities. As if white people had never had it rough.
I'm just trying to explain why I think racism is still a huge problem in this country.
Everything would be all right if everybody would just stop complaining and just live and let live.
That's easy to say when you're not being profiled and labeled or stereotyped. But try being in the other guy or gal's shoes and you might start singing a different song.
Look, I'm Italian, and the Italians have been discriminated against too. But you don't hear us complaining, do you? I mean, look at the movies. We're portrayed as gangsters, shakedown artists, conmen and murderers, the scum of the earth.
But being stereotyped is worse for racial minorities.
Worse? For what I can see, most blacks seem to be doing quite well. Well, at least as good as me, and many doing a lot better.
But that doesn't mean they're immune from the effects of racism.
What racism? They can buy houses wherever they want, work wherever they want. And what about affirmative action? Didn't that open up a lot of doors for them?
It did. But that doesn't mean that the problem's been solved. All it means is that some of the more glaring inequalities are finally being eliminated to a certain extent, and a lot of that depends on the strength of the economy. But no matter what, blacks are still viewed differently than other groups, even though they're more prosperous now than in the past.
Why do you keep sticking up for them?
Because I believe in the American creed of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But for all, not just for some. Remember, this country was built by slaves who were brought here against their will. And now we have to deal with the legacy of 3 centuries of injustice. It's like with Germany and the Jews. People say that the war ended a long time ago, and ask why the subject of the Holocaust still needs to be discussed. That's just a way to avoid dealing with the problem of anti-Semitism.
I agree with there's still a gulf between whites and blacks in this country. But I really believe you're overstating the situation.
Am I? If anything, I'm understating it. Racial bigotry is alive and well. Maybe we don't hear about lynchings anymore, but oppression can occur in other ways. Like the idea of last hired, first fired, or being associated with certain diseases, or the prevalence of out-of-wedlock births, or being subjected to racial profiling like that college professor was in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Do you think the police would have arrested him if he'd been white?
Well, I never had any problems dealing with blacks. In fact, a lot of my friends are black.
Where are they now?
I lost touch with them over the years. I remember when I was going to college, I became friendly with a young black girl, a student at the school. Man, we used to go out for lunch together during class breaks. I really enjoyed her company. I was thinking about, asking her out on a date, but I didn't. Then the following semester, our class schedules changed and we stopped running across each other. And I lost touch with her, and sometimes I wonder, whatever happened to her?
You never told me about this before. It's too bad, though, because it seems like you liked her. Did she being black have anything to do with you not asking her out on a date?
Probably did. At the time, if I brought her home, a black girl, my mother would have fainted, and my friends would have been shocked. But that's the way I was conditioned, and I never tested the waters. I've been single ever since.
What a shame. We all have stories like that, lost opportunities that come back to haunt us. I told you about that guy that I was engaged to for 4 years. My parents didn't like the fact that he wasn't Jewish and put a lot of pressure on me to end the relationship. And after 4 years, that's exactly what happened. May have made my parents happy. They left me with a huge, gaping, emotional donut hole that I just can't fill.
It's terrible what we do to ourselves.
Yes, it is. It's like in the movie West Side Story when Tony and Maria fall in love, and look what happens to them. Tragedy. That's what racism does. It kills. And the characters there aren't even black, but the result is the same. Ugh.
But life does go on, and we gotta make the best of it.
I know you're trying to be nice, but what you're saying is pure claptrap, a mere platitude. Of course we have to go on, but it still hurts. And if this is how I feel, then I can hardly imagine how a black person, any black person, must feel living in a society that so cruelly divides and alienates people. Sometimes I try to imagine myself being black. I wonder if people would treat me the same. I wonder if you would treat me the same.
Come on now, Paul. This is all speculation.
I know, but let's say I was black. How would you feel about that?
Wouldn't bother me a bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, with that girl you met in school, it did bother you, so why would it be any different now?
Because maybe I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser.
More platitudes. Racism is a feeling, not just something that disappears with time.
So what do you want me to say? Everything I say is wrong. So why even bother asking me?
Because I'm trying to make a point.
Which is?
That racism is so deeply ingrained in us that no matter what we do, we can't get out from under it.
First, speak for yourself. Second, you better move to another subject because, you know, you're beginning to depress me and yourself.
Hank, what did I do? How could I ever let him go? I really cared about him. Cared. I wanted to marry him, have children with him, but everybody said, no, don't do it. You'll be miserable. And I believed them. What an idiot I was. An idiot.
Paula, I want you to calm down. I know the feeling because I've been there myself. It's horrible.
This is what racism does to you. What it did to me. It devastated me. My family thought they were doing the right thing, but all they were doing was projecting their bigotry through me. They would say, Paula, you know he's not Jewish, and Paula, he's okay, but he's a goy, and Paula, we want you to meet a nice Jewish man, a doctor or a lawyer, not someone like him. He's not good enough for you. You see, racism isn't just about skin color. Do you know that I haven't spoken to my mother in 6 months?
Why?
Because we're estranged. I can't talk to her because whenever I call her, all I hear are complaints about me, and I couldn't take it anymore.
I really don't know what to tell you.
Don't tell me anything. Just hold me, be with me, and love me. Really love me. I don't want to be alone ever.
End of Act 2.
Act 3, Scene 1. Time, the present. Place, a bedroom. Frank and Paula are in bed sleeping together. Jim and Mabel are standing on either side of the bed. They are apparitions who can be seen and heard only by the audience.
I didn't know white people could get so emotional.
You know better than that. I think they're nice, especially the lady.
I can't feel sorry for them. It's their attitudes that got them into trouble. So good for them. I hope they learned a lesson.
That's so mean. Why are you being so hard on them? You're sounding just like a preacher. Who are you anyway to be judgmental? You never made mistakes?
I made plenty of mistakes, but I never got all worked up over them like they did.
Well, maybe you should have gotten worked up. Might have done you some good.
Don't trifle with me.
Stop being so prideful. That's how all these problems start. People thinking they're better than they actually are.
I don't think I'm better than anybody.
Don't make me laugh. I've seen you strutting around like a big-time turkey trying to impress people. Well, you don't impress me.
Who said I want to impress you? I'm just a regular guy who enjoys the simple things in life. Not like these folks. White people, I just can't figure them out.
Yeah, and that's what they say about us. I would have thought that things would have been different by now.
Things are different. Look at all the black movie stars, athletes, and politicians. They're famous, admired, and making millions of dollars. People respect them. No more second-class citizens. Now we're in charge.
We're just tokens put out there to pacify us, to make us think that things have changed, but it's all a charade. The system perpetrates itself and makes whatever accommodations it must to keep it going. You watch. If our current president screws up just one time, he'll be chased out of town so fast that he wouldn't even have time to pack his bags. And it wouldn't matter that he's president. All people would think is, he's just another black man in trouble. It's that old double standard.
Screw that double standard. The fact is, we made it to the big times and now we can cash in and live the American dream.
Everything's money with you. Don't you know when you're being bought off?
If they're willing to pay, I'll take the money, no problem.
And you think things have changed? You are pathetic.
Well, what am I supposed to think? 70 years ago, we was being treated like dirt and getting peanuts. At least we're getting paid more money.
But that money just buys you headaches because sooner or later you screw up and then the money disappears. And people say, you see, give them money, give them everything they want, and they still can't cut it. That's racism.
No, it's not. That's just being stupid.
Look, Jim, remember when you said that one day a black man would issue another Emancipation Proclamation? Well, that man arrived, and look what happened to him. He was shot, just like Lincoln. And what about that man in Los Angeles when the police pulled him over for some traffic infraction, then beat him with clubs and kicked him viciously? You think that wasn't racism?
I know, Mabel. Because we had to watch that, I hated what I saw. There's nothing I could do. Nothing.
I know. So things really haven't changed all that much. But still, there's hope.
How can you believe that?
Because when I see these two good people and millions more just like them all across this country, struggling with the same issues that we're struggling with, wanting to make our country a better place in which to live, I can believe that better days are yet to come.
Jim and Mabel exit.
What is it, babe?
I have the strangest feeling that someone was in this room.
You must have been dreaming.
I guess you're right. Frank,
What is it?
I just want to let you know that I love you.
I love you too.
For God has commanded that every lofty mountain be laid low, and that the age-old depths and gorge be filled to level ground.
Where's that from?
From the book. It's from the Bible, the book of Baruch, chapter 5, 1 to 9.
What does it mean?
It means that there's still hope. Hallelujah.
And hallelujah to you.
Lights go out, end of Act 3, Scene 1.
Act 3, Scene 2. Lights go on. The stage is bare.
Paul enters the stage. At center stage, he faces the audience and sings.
We're strangers to each other, but sometimes lovers too. All part of a rainbow with colors bright and true. We're people going places while time is rushing by. We gotta go on living. We laugh and sometimes cry. We get upset and angry, and sometimes even fight. It's just a waste of effort in the thing that we call life. We're strangers to each other, but sometimes lovers too. We're all part of a rainbow with colors bright and true. No more injustice!
No more strife!
No more racism.
No more sexism.
America!
One country, one land, one people, united! Lights go